Dipti Laurent is here with us for a look through the papers. Dipti, thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, Sanam.
Hello. You're starting with the sardine movement in Italy, which is very much in response to the far-right politics of Matteo Salvini.
That's right. The far-right leader has been plotting his comeback ever since he was left out of the Italian government earlier this year, and he's got his eyes on local elections next January. His League Party is the main opposition party in Italy, but it's also the most popular in the country, with around 30% of votes in favor of the party. But he's having to contend with this very new sardine movement. It's a grassroots political movement in which thousands of Italians have basically been cramming like sardines into piazzas in cities where Salvini is campaigning. His response to the movement was to post a picture of a cat eating sardines on social media. Not the most mature response, but this movement is very interesting. It's also gathering a lot of steam. They were most recently in Modena, then they were in Bologna. They've got more and more protests planned in other cities, from Rimini to Parma to Florence to Torino. Basically, they get into these squares. They chant anti-Salvini slogans. They sing Bella Ciao, which is, of course, an anti-fascist anthem. Il Fatto Quotidiano describing the protesters as mostly 20 and 30 years old with little to no political experience, nor really having any political ambitions.
Dipti, you mentioned that this movement has been gaining a lot of steam. How are the papers covering the story?
A lot of positivity from the papers. La Repubblica in this article calls a contagion, quote, exciting. The movement is disorienting to Salvini because it's not violent. And in a few days, they managed to do what the left hasn't been able to do in years. That's really organize a proper opposition. Not quite the same enthusiasm from this writer for Corriere della Sera, who says, who really wonders if the movement will actually have any impact in swaying public opinion.
Let's move on to the UK and the Independent newspaper, which is looking at what it calls the largest maternity scandal in the history of the National Health Service, the NHS.
That's right. The NHS is at the target of this investigation that's revealed the deaths of at least 42 babies and 3 mothers at 2 hospital trusts between 1979 and 2017. The Independent reporting that more than 600 other cases are being examined right now, so that number could well rise. It really points the finger at a lack of informed consent by mothers to have their babies delivered by midwives, even though in cases of problems, the risks are higher. It's also been compounded by a lack of transparency, a lack of empathy, and a lack of communication with grieving families about what went wrong. They're also saying there's a real failure to properly address the errors that ensured, sadly, that they kept being repeated over the years. It is what the Independent calls the NHS's biggest maternity scandal by the sheer number of people it involves.
And a horrific story it is. Let's move over now to Haiti. And we've got Le Monde, the French paper, looking at the protest movement against the current government, which has now been going on for over 2.5 months.
That's right. This, adding to the problems that were already existing in Haiti, Le Monde really painting a very dire picture of the country, ravaged by protests against corruption and social inequality, having already been plagued by famine, gang violence, and poverty. Le Monde evokes Haiti that's in paralysis, that's where schools, public services, businesses, and hospitals are at a near standstill. The opposition wants Jovenel Moïse to resign, but he's a rich businessman with ties to the Trump administration as well. He's refusing for the moment to leave.
For the moment, certainly. Let's move on to the US. There's an anti-drug campaign that's been getting a great deal of traction, but for all the wrong reasons.
That's right. So South Dakota's governor, Kristi Noem, launched this anti-drug campaign this week, well-intentioned anti-meth campaign, actually. They spent $500,000 on ads across TV, radio, and billboards. Unfortunately, that money wasn't enough to point out the rather unfortunate, pun-intended slogan of the campaign, which is "Meth, we're on it." So clearly not quite the message they were hoping to deliver. It sent Twitter into a meltdown down one user suggesting that they change, suggesting a slogan for their anti-drug campaign against hemp. Hemp, we want it. Another suggesting a slogan for the state's STD campaign, the clap, we got it. While this user wonders what South Dakotans are actually getting up to in their spare time. Barney, the kid's purple dinosaur, as seen by South Dakotans and the rest of the country.
Finally, a new trend in skincare, perhaps, and it's actually not new. I'm going to tell you about it later. It's the poo facial mask.
That's right. It's not a new because it did actually. Women in Japan have been using this for centuries. It's new in the Western world, and it's not human poo, thank God. But it's bird feces, which is probably not
Still
better.
not great.
Still not great. Specifically, the excrement of nightingales. The facial mask, as I said, has been used by Japanese women for centuries now. It's totally on trend for Western beauty salons. The production of nightingale feces is very controlled. The free-range birds are fed only organic seeds. Everything is sterilized before their poop is dehydrated and turned into powder and then bottled for men and women to plaster all over their faces. The verdict from this Guardian journalist who tried it out, not ineffective, but definitely weird. Also, Victoria Beckham is a fan. Proof that a nightingale's poop might be good for your skin, but it doesn't necessarily give you a singing voice.
I tried it in London
And?
many years ago. Didn't enjoy the experience.
Oh, well, there you go. Did it smell?
Not really,
Okay.
actually. Thank you very much for that, Dipti Laurent. If you want to follow any of those stories that Dipti's just mentioned, you can go to our website. It's www.france24.com.